Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Fanboys Anonymous Roundtable discussion meeting. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and with me today we have a fully stocked panel of guests. We have Brandon Liggan.
What up?
We have Ashley Stens.
Hi.
Sam Lassio.
Woo!
Nikki Mills. Larry Deuber.
Hi.
Michael Burhan.
The Eliminator!
Sean Mitchell.
Oh, hi.
And zombie.ass himself, Nick Abrams.
No.
You finally got the no in from
I
earlier.
finally got my no in.
People don't understand what that is, but who cares?
No.
Today we're going to talk about a couple of different topics, and that's going to be roughly a three-tiered kind of discussion. We're going to talk Iron Man 3, we're going to talk Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Phase 2 and whether or not this first installment was something that kicks it off with a bang or really makes it nosedive. So let's just get started with the Phase 1 talk, and then we'll kind of merge into Iron Man and Phase 2. When it comes to Phase 1, what do you guys think were some of the flaws?
A lot.
A lot?
There was a lot.
I don't think there was a lot wrong with
There was
it.
a lot.
I don't
what
think
some of the
Trust
flaws?
me. Trust me.
I don't think
talk, Sam.
I don't think every
sense.
movie. Yeah, I don't think every movie did a proper job of introducing their title character. I mean, Iron Man, I think, did a great job of showing us who Stark is, his personality, and then the evolution of his character from before being captured to afterward. I don't think Thor did that for me.
Thor and Captain America were the worst ones.
Huh? What?
Yeah.
I love
Ah!
America.
Captain America was good. The movie was good. What he was saying about introducing the story, it could have been a little bit better. Personally, Thor was the worst one out of them when it came to describing. It's just like, I am Thor.
Another!
Well, he is. Thor.
I am Thor.
I mean,
And that's it. That's all you need to know is I am Thor.
you've had thousands of years to figure out who Thor is.
Yeah.
Do you know nothing of Norse mythology? No, sorry.
Now, see, I would say that Iron Man 2 does the worst job of kind of setting people up, because when it comes to setting up other Avengers in that storyline, the only person that it really sets up is a little bit of Black Widow, and all they do for her is, I'm Natalie Rushman, and I'm a notary, by the way, I'm not.
Some of the worst acting, by the way. Jesus Christ,
She's
Scarlett
hot, though,
Johansson.
so-
Wasn't there to act. She was there
she
to
can
pout
be
and show
hot,
her
but I
boobs.
mean, it's like, what did they do when they tried to get that scene from her? I'm Rushman, Natalie Rushman. All right, Natalie. Now let's try to do it again, but pretend you're a person that feels things, and go. Rushman, Natalie Rushman.
Yeah.
Closer. We need to try this again.
How about you just
Rushman,
say
Natalie Rushman.
Staring at a cleavage.
the letters in your name? Rushman.
It's like, Jesus Christ,
The
Scarlett.
SHIELD agents were terrible, though, as far as character development. Because, I mean, I ask you, who is Tony Stark? You can go into
He's
detail.
Iron Man.
Well, yeah, if I ask you, like,
Billionaire philanthropist, playboy,
But then if I ask you, like,
butthole.
who is Natasha Romanoff? You'd be like, oh, she's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's
and
why
that's
she
about
doesn't
it.
have
She's
her own
hot.
movie.
Well, to be fair, Black Widow has never been an interesting character for the most part to hold a solo film or anything.
Actually, in the comics, she has been an interesting character because she started off as a villain and moves over to, like, you know, the side of good, so to speak. So
She's
you get
an
to go in
interesting
depth into the
supporting
character.
character. That's the whole thing. It's the same as Hawkeye. You're not going to watch a Hawkeye movie no matter who plays him or how he's written or anything like that. It's the
There's
same
not
as...
enough.
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
they could do a Hawkeye movie if they
It'd be
wanted to,
boring.
but it would not be easy.
It would be boring.
Not really. He's the thing is, he's more interesting now after the whole Dark Reign incident and all that. He's more interesting now than he was like back then. And I think his
I'd
character.
like to be a weaker character if he wasn't tied into S.H.I.E.L.D. That's
I
No, I'm in agreement with that one.
Now, see,
But
I think he's a poor man's Green Arrow, and Green Arrow struggles a lot as it is.
Yeah.
He's kind of
There
just
were
a hired gun
there
to
were
work with Shield.
aliens from outer space with like high technology weapons and shit, and there was Hawkeye with his fucking 15 arrows, fucking shooting at them all. Where was he getting those arrows from? He was endlessly shooting fucking arrows.
Well,
Maybe
he
he has
did
a
run
mutant
out.
ability to take those arrows out of his ass.
He did. I think that once he ran out, he recycled them. I've never really seen that. Like, he just goes and picks one up and is like, okay, we're good.
I'd like to see that deleted scene in the movie where he's walking around just taking his arrows out of the aliens.
Yeah.
They're like, hey,
Iron Man,
Hawkeye, can you
Iron Man,
kind of
did you
fucking
see
help
it? It went
us
over
here?
there somewhere.
It's like,
Guys,
Hulk just
these
ripped
cost
off
me
a
like
building.
$50 an arrow. I have to find them.
Hulk just took out a city block, and Iron Man is fighting a behemoth thing here, and Hawkeye's running around going, do you see any more arrows? I'm looking around. I think I shot
Jesus
something
Christ,
off.
these things
serious
should have
here.
GPS.
See, that's one of the problems that I had when it comes to Phase 1, though, is the characters that they were going to introduce. They did, I think, the best possible job that they could have for a lot of them. And as far as the movies go, the main problem is just pacing and everything. Captain America, I think, is one of the bigger flawed ones because I don't feel as if like a lot of the characters get a payoff other than Cap himself. Like I don't feel the relationship between Peggy and Cap or the arch rivalry between Red Skull and Cap actually tends to matter in the movie. It's kind of rushed. And that's the only flaw that I have with a lot of the Phase 1 material. Because when you look at like the grand scheme of things, if you did the marathon, like a lot of us actually did, you watch it all in a row, and it's the little anchor points that really matter. And then when it comes to Avengers, you don't need to worry about a lot of that stuff. Hawkeye, for the most part, is the only one who has really no setup. He has that quick scene in Thor, but you do get to know like a little bit about Black Widow. You do know who Hulk is, even though he isn't Edward Norton anymore. You fully know Iron Man. You really know the majority of what Thor and Cap are about, and enough about Nick Fury. But pacing issues and stuff, those are the flaws, I think, in some of the movies. Iron Man is a completely different story because that movie's almost flawless.
Yeah, but that's because the story was held up pretty much the same as the comic, you know, apart from the fact that they changed from Chinese to, you know, the Muslim terrorists. They've literally made the movie flawless with times, and also with the ending where he tells everybody that he's Iron Man, which he doesn't really do in the comics. But apart from that, the movie itself was flawless. It set Stark up properly. You could understand why he went from this egotistical little dickhead to an egotistical dickhead with a heart, basically, you know. He started answering for his actions. In Iron Man 2, you don't see much of that setup. It still tells a story, but it sort of tells it more from the villain's perspective rather than Stark's. You know, he's mostly on the defense in terms of that movie itself. But it still has an okay build to it. It wasn't as amazing as the first one, but it did what it was supposed to. With
I
Cap,
didn't think it did what it was supposed to do. Iron Man 2 should have been a sequel to Iron Man, and it felt like it was more just. It just felt like a prequel to the Avengers. It didn't feel like Iron Man at all.
But did you know what it was supposed to establish? It was mostly made to one, set up the Avengers, and two, to get Rhodey in the suit. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
You know,
but
Stark was
it could
already
have been more.
established.
You could have given me a little more than that, you know?
No, of course, because if it's an Iron Man movie, it's supposed to tell the story from Iron Man's perspective, not from anybody else's.
Right.
But the same thing, they didn't do that. They decided to go from a different perspective and go from the villains and you know, set Rhodey up so he's War Machine now, and you know, set the whole wheels turning for the next movie, which is what they've been trying to do since, you know, the Hulk and the first Iron Man movie, but they've been going in different directions.
I actually don't think the Incredible Hulk gets its due credit in a lot of ways.
Really? Because
Yeah, I mean,
there's
I
a lot
thought
of
it was
things
really
about
good.
Hulk that annoyed me.
mean, I thought it was a really good movie, and a lot of people tell me that it's really bad, and I ask them, well, why is it bad? Like, what did you not like about it? I felt that everything that needed to be there was there.
I can
Yeah,
give you a
no, I
couple
liked
things
it.
that I didn't like about it right off the bat. One was they actively went out of their way to ignore, well, I shouldn't say ignore, to distance themselves from the first movie, but at the same time depend upon the first movie, the Jennifer Connelly and Eric Bana film. They showed enough of like a background kind of a situation for them to be able to get away with it, but at the same time, they even did things like how I've always complained that they actively don't say character names. And that's
Yeah.
not just a coincidence for that to happen. I mean, they purposely did not want to do that. The same as with these newer Bond films, how they don't say M, they keep saying Mom.
But I
It's
think
supposed to be ma'am.
it's more to do with the fact with the Hulk, they tried to base it more off the TV show instead of off the comic books. Because Ann Lee,
I don't
Ann
think
Lee, I
they.
don't know what he was doing with that.
I don't think they were trying to do that. I don't think they. I know the song from the TV show was in there,
They
but I
had
don't
the
think they
setup
were.
as well when Norton was sitting in the chair.
Yeah, but I don't think they were basing it on that. I do agree with Tony though. I really don't think that they should have tried to make it like a loose connection to the 2003 Hulk. It felt more like it was not a direct sequel to that, but that since you already saw that movie, they didn't have to set up like they didn't have an origin story, which is what I'm okay with that. I don't need to see Banner like get the radiation, become the Hulk for the first time. I'm okay with in the middle because I don't actually care about all that. I care about him on the run. That's his character.
But that's who like Bruce is basically.
Right.
He's always been the guy that's been on the run and running away from the military, and you know he kind of in a way he's kind of a self-obsessed emo, which is what they've kind of distanced themselves from a bit in the Avengers movie. But the portrayal was good. The fact that they decided to go in a different direction for the Abomination, I didn't have an issue with that.
I didn't in a lot of regards. The only problem that I had was, and I like Tim Roth, but I don't think that he was really the person for the role.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one because he's one of those actors where I think he's great as a sort of a secondary character, where he's great as one of those silent types, but he's not usually great to establish as a villain. And the problem was the Abomination as a character wasn't a great villain. You know,
Well, he's just evil Hulk. That's it.
yeah, and you needed someone who was pulling the strings a bit more, which they were trying to establish in the movie itself, but it kind of went over everybody's head because it was sort of like a quick shot. This is what we're going to do with him. If there's a sequel, we'll establish a bit more later on.
I wish they would have taken it out of the Marvel one-shot and actually put it in the movie when Stark was there. Because if you didn't see the Marvel one-shots, then you'd miss the fact that when Stark came to the General, they weren't looking for Banner. They had no clue about Banner. They were actually trying to recruit Blonsky for the Avengers.
Oh, really?
But again, when Stark came in at the end of the Incredible Hulk, it didn't work because he said, "I'm putting a team together," which he wasn't. Like
Well,
he was
yeah,
established
the
Avengers
events
twice.
of the Incredible Hulk happen after Iron Man 2. So that cut scene is confusing because Iron Man 2 hadn't come out yet, obviously.
Yeah.
So the fact that they put it after that was confusing. Second, they said, "I hear you have an unusual problem." He doesn't want Banner, and that's what was the confusing part, is because that's what it makes it look like. We're putting a team together, and you're like, oh, so Banner's going to be a member of the Avengers.
No, but again, he's using it in the tense of a singular. He's saying that I'm putting a team together. It wasn't we, it was I'm. And the issue that we're having was after Iron Man 2, they said that they didn't want him in the Avengers. They wanted him as a fighter.
Yeah, that's the thing. He didn't say I. He did say we, but we does sort of make you think that Stark is a part of the Avengers already.
But that's the biggest problem I found with that, because I think the issue they were having was they were trying to scramble together to link these movies
Right.
in order to establish these characters when it comes to the Avengers itself.
Definitely. I think that they were going to go one way, and then they decided to go another way, and they were like, oh shit, well now that doesn't make sense, so what are we
Yeah.
going to do? Create
That's
Marvel.
why I think they decided to not do this for Iron Man 3, because they haven't decided yet on what they were going to do for the Avengers 2. So they thought, okay, let's not add any content in that, because we might change our minds later on.
Who here thinks that, because it seems like a lot of people agree that Iron Man is the best one out of that. If you don't necessarily count Avengers, who here thinks that Incredible Hulk is one of the better ones?
I wouldn't say one of
No.
the better ones.
I think the Hulk is better than Captain America. By far.
My opinion is I think that the Hulk did what it was supposed to do. It re-established the character, kept him fresh in everybody's minds, and also gave Banner a bit more of a backstory in a certain way to allow the characters to progress to the way he was in the Avengers movie. It wasn't better than Iron Man, because Iron Man set Stark up properly. It was a proper origin story, whereas the Incredible Hulk was not.
Well,
What do
here's the problem though with that is the whole issue that I have is that the Incredible Hulk. I liked Edward Norton's portrayal of Bruce Banner. I
Mhm.
liked Mark Ruffalo's portrayal of Bruce Banner.
I did.
The problem is
Yeah.
when you put them together, they're not the same Bruce Banner.
Yeah, because the problem is Ruffalo wasn't Banner.
No.
Everything that you can see, if you watch the comics, if you read the comics, if you watch the cartoons, if
Right.
you understand anything about the character, Ruffalo was playing him as a sort of a geeky, funny nerd guy. He wasn't, and the whole excuse that
Ruffalo.
he used of "I'm always angry" just didn't make sense.
Oh, he's trying to do what RDJ did with Iron Man, basically.
But
That's all he was
he's
doing.
not that character. The characters are polar opposites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stark is a different character to Banner, and the problem is a lot of comic book fans, myself included, get pissed off about stuff like that, because when you get someone acting a total polar opposite of the actual character of this character that you've known for like since you picked up a Hulk comic, it does piss you off. It does get to the point where you sit there and thinking that's not an accurate portrayal. He's not doing it the way he's supposed to. But
Right.
again, it depends on the
It's not
direction.
even, Michael. It's not even a question of that though. It's not because people have argued this is a different universe. It's what Earth 19999 or something. I understand that it's not going to be just like the comic books. My issue is that the Bruce Banner of the Incredible Hulk and the Bruce Banner of the Avengers are two different Bruce Banners.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
agree with you.
it's not that he's not a correct portrayal of the comic book. It's you can't put Edward Norton's Banner in the Avengers and it be the same movie, and you can't put Mark Ruffalo's Banner in the Incredible Hulk and it be the same movie.
You know what makes me laugh about that though is the fact that Ruffalo wasn't in it enough. Like the Hulk was the main focus rather than Ruffalo.
Right.
And the reason being, I believe, is probably because, and this is just me saying this, his unfamiliarity of the character, or maybe the fact they were worried about the way that they were going to react towards his portrayal of Banner.
I think it's just because people wanted to see the Hulk in the movie. They didn't want to see Banner.
Mm-hmm.
No, if you're gonna make a blockbuster like that, you don't want to see the nerd. And I've actually read to the contrary that Ruffalo does know. Like, he was a fan of the Hulk comics, but it's like you guys have been saying, they're two different portrayals, and when you put them side by side, they don't quite match up. So it's if you can reconcile that, then it's
Yeah,
I
but
don't
I
think
mean,
it's-
it's interesting because Don Cheadle's portrayal of Rhodey, I thought worked with, like, if you put him in Iron Man 1, I think that works. Like, I don't think the two
See-
different Rhodey's were that different.
Yeah,
Right,
but
that's
again,
also because Rhodey's not as prominently featured in the first one. He's brought more into the spotlight in the second one because they
Yeah.
did have better plans for him. So Don Cheadle was able to he got more screen time in the end, and that's gonna change the way that you're going to perceive him.
And again, it's direction as well, because if you look at Favreau wrote and directed both of those movies, Iron Man 1 and 2. So whatever's there on paper and whatever he's been, directed to do in terms of the character, he's going to do it. So it'll probably be a far better portrayal than with the Hulk movie and the Avengers, because you've got two different directors getting their hands on this. And other sets of writers as well. I think Wendon, he wrote the script for that as well, didn't he? Whedon, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, Larry, you're somebody who, the comics and everything like that, but you're not somebody who like studies up on each and every little character. Like if I said to you, name the Infinity Gems on the Gauntlet, you would just be like, what?
Yeah, what? No.
From your perspective, did that bother you when you were watching these movies, that you thought like, well,
Listen to
this
you
is a
guys
little
talk
too...
about like what's supposed to be. I'm gonna say this, and this is what they're probably going for. Again, like I think Sam said, they probably had one direction set and then went with another. As a character, as one person, as Tony Stark from Iron Man 1 to Avengers and 3, they focused on that character. They didn't care about the story. What they showed in 3 is that Avengers affected him, and they'll continue that in Avengers 2. It's going to be what, Stark got the thing out of his chest. Stark made all new suits, Like, they don't care about the other stuff. They're going to make individual character stories, and that's, I think, their main set, because if you really think about it, when it's all said and done by, like, 2020 or something, there's going to be a giant $300 box set that all of us are going to buy regardless, because it's all of the Avenger movies. It's like, it's got every one. So they don't care, and they're not going to make it perfect. It's money. Batman, for instance, they'll never stop Batman. There's going to be a Batman like 3 more years, if that. It's all money.
Well, they stalled it over time after that disastrous Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Bat nipples.
Ashley, from your perspective, do you think that, like, not necessarily that the Avengers would have been better with Edward Norton as the Hulk, but I know from when we were seeing the marathon, a lot of us, and you and I both at the same time thought, if we're going to get food, we're going to get it during Incredible Hulk or Iron Man 2. Were you like, do you think that Mark Ruffalo being an Incredible Hulk would have made it a better movie, or do you think that Edward Norton being in Avengers would have made it more interesting, or vice versa, or whatever?
I think it would be more interesting with the first one in it, in Avengers.
Why is that?
But I don't know. I really just didn't like the Hulk movie at all. And I really didn't like when they changed the actor. It wasn't the same person at all. It just messed everything up for me.
Now, when we're kind of like exhausting the Hulk a little bit here, let's move on to Cap. With Cap, let's move on to Thor, because Thor came before Cap.
I am Thor.
Now, Nikki's bringing up I Am Thor, and that's about it. I actually would argue that Thor does a better job than Captain America and a couple of the other movies in some regards when it comes to setting up the purpose behind the character. The thing with Thor that I have an issue with is his time on Earth. I don't feel as though he spends enough time there and really connects with the people enough that that's why he goes, oh, well, forever I'm going to protect Earth because I kind of like this chick. But the Asgard stuff, that to me was the most entertaining part of the whole movie, and I'm really hoping that the Dark World kind of doesn't even bother with Earth.
I don't think they will, the way that the teasers have looked. So it seems like it's just going to be all set in one of the other realms, the elf realm or whatever it is.
It looks like Malekith is going to try to invade Earth, though.
Well, from what I'm hearing is that there's, and I don't know if this is like technically a spoiler or not, because at the same time we keep hearing stuff from Stephanie Shostak, I think is what her name is, how to pronounce, that she was going to be Wasp in this Iron Man movie and all that. So you can never really tell if it's true or not, but from what I'm hearing is that the plot of Thor 2 is Malekith, he attacks Earth as some kind of a distraction, and it all revolves around him attacking Asgard and taking Thor away from Asgard. I don't know if that necessarily is true or not, but I
That's a
really
smart plan, though.
Yeah, that would make sense if you want to take down Asgard, then remove its champion from the city, or the realm, or whatever the fuck.
Planet or whatever it is.
well, they don't really say too much about that, do they?
From the set.
Is it supposed to be a planet, just like a normal, like Mars?
Yeah.
I think it's a
supposed
planet.
to be.
When he drew the diagram, he drew little planets. So
I didn't know if he just couldn't draw that well.
yeah.
They're just really floating discs in space.
Just bullet points.
This is Asgard. It's a circle, and this is the realm.
But Tony, what you were saying though, where you think it does a better job of setting up the character, I really don't think it did.
Yeah.
Like it's set, like the very beginning of the movie is him about to become the king, and then it's taken away. The movie I felt was supposed to be him trying to like become the leader that Asgard needs him to be, while at the same time becoming the protector of Earth. But I didn't give two shits about him being king. I didn't care that Loki wasn't. I didn't care that Loki wasn't the biological child. I didn't care about his romance with Jane. Like, none of it. I felt like I just didn't care about the character.
Oh, really? I would argue the total opposite. I actually thought
Yeah.
that, if anything, Thor was a movie where, not as much the relationship with Jane, but when it comes to the Loki situation, I think Loki is the linchpin of that whole film, and he makes everything make sense.
Thor was one of my favorites. I've always been a fan of the Loki character in both mythology and in the comic books. So going into Thor, I was really nervous because I don't know anybody who had ever heard of Tom Hiddleston before. And I just kept thinking, man, this guy better not fuck this character up. And he fucking nailed it. He was definitely
So amazing.
he was the best part of that movie. And it did so much to establish him and his motive. It was more successful in establishing Loki for the Avengers than it was Thor for the Avengers. But
I'll give you that.
I think it's erroneous to say that that Thor didn't really have that growth, because maybe it's not as easy to for whichever reason it's not as easy for you to care about, but you see him start to take steps towards becoming the man he needs to be. He puts the arrogant childishness aside to step up and do what he needs to do to both regain his power and protect the people he cares about when the destroyer almost blew the fuck out of that town.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and the argument I would make as that there's more character development in Thor over Captain America, for most of the characters at the very least, is in Thor, like you said, you go from Thor is like, oh, I'm going to be the king, and it's a guarantee I'm going to be king. And Odin has a little bit of character development that he needs to do too, and they don't really focus too much on it, but it's in the background there. He goes from being willing to kind of anoint Thor, but then he also has his doubts and everything. Loki, of course, everybody knows what Loki's story is in Thor. I don't need to explain that. But there's this...
I don't, Tony. Explain it to me.
Too bad.
I'm joking.
But there's this little underlying motif that they have out there, if you pay attention to it in the Thor film, where everybody's kind of complacent in Asgard. The Lady Sif and the Warriors 3, they're just kind of there to do whatever, and that's why they are willing to go with Thor to just, kill a bunch of frost giants and everything, because that's what we do. We're not going to question it. And Loki goes along with things other than when he wants to do his little mischief and everything like that. But Odin doesn't really tend to give a shit until he's actually attacked in Asgard. And then he starts actually thinking to himself, well, Thor's not ready for this, and so on and so forth. You have, I can't remember their mother's name. Frigga? Is that it?
Freya.
Yeah.
Freya? Whatever. Renee
Bald.
Russo.
Yeah.
She is completely oblivious the entire time.
She doesn't even have like more than a line.
Right, but
He's desperately ill.
she's
What?
just kind of like, my son's gonna be king, and then it's like, my son's gone, I miss him, and all that. But then by the end of the film, she's got this kind of a somber, oh shit, I was an idiot this whole time, kind of
Oh
a
shit! I didn't speak this whole movie.
And
kind
then
of
she
a
pulls out
reaction,
a fucking sword out of nowhere.
and gets her ass kicked immediately. Like it's the complacency and all that, and the events of Thor change everybody's character around, and it's the only people that I think really the main flaws character wise when it comes to Thor are Darcy and Selvig. I hate Selvig,
Yeah.
but Captain America, on the other hand, I don't think anybody has any kind of character development for the most part.
There really
If Bucky
isn't,
dies
because
in the first.
the whole thing with Captain America is that fucking what's his name, Dieter Stark from the Lost World. It's all like, that's not the same guy, but they look similar. But he's like, oh, you're a good guy, and then he spends the whole movie being a good guy.
Exactly. Yes.
What the fuck? And then there's Tommy Lee Jones, who was cast because he's Tommy Lee Jones, and you see him be Tommy Lee Jones the whole movie.
And Peggy is interested in Steve, and continues to be interested in Steve, and then Steve is dead, so it's just.
And then she's sad. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't mind Captain America. If you look at Captain America as more of like the stereotypical action film, it is rather enjoyable. But if you go into it expecting something more, I think it's just incredibly generic.
Like
I
Iron
think
Man 3?
It's supposed to be, though. It's supposed to be because this is Captain America. It's the 1940s. It's we're America. We're the good guys.
Fuck the Nazis.
Yeah, fuck the Nazis. We're gonna go into
Hey,
Germany and kick some ass.
Do you know what the main issue with that movie was? It was set in the wrong time period.
Now it's set in the
No.
right time period.
No. Get it? Think about it this way, right? Instead of going through his whole full-out origin story, they should have actually had half the film detailing that, and then the other half, Roger's trying to adapt to modern day. You didn't see any of that.
No, that's what the.
He wakens up in a room. Oh look, I'm here.
I disagree, because I think, first off, if you would have tried to separate the film in that way, you would have wound up with a weaker film overall. Because,
Yeah, you would have been splitting your time.
and then what would you do for a villain for the second half? Would the Red Skull magically be transported to the fucking 2000 when whatevers, and Rogers wakes up and he's like, oh my god, this is such a shock. Hey, the Red Skull's still doing stuff. Let's stop him.
No, but the Red Skull, that's exactly how the character ends up. The Skull
That's
ends
how
up
it ends up.
coming
but
into
I
modern
think
day.
if you did that all in one movie, it would feel like such total bullshit.
Because
And
it
I
was a
think
pretty long movie.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Whedon is so good at what he does that you get that struggle from Cap trying to adjust when he is punching the punching bag in the opening scenes of the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
He takes that whole, like, you see it still affects him, but he's the type of man that can put it aside and do what he needs to do for the sake of the mission.
But see, that bothers me because they're going to be doing the Future Shock in the Winter Soldier movie. But I felt there should have been a Future Shock in the Avengers. They were trying to move it aside for the sequel, but I think that made it weaker in his character. Because,
Yeah,
I mean,
because you've already-
they show Cap the image of the Hulk rampaging on, like, this little iPad thing. And
It's
he
just
just
like,
picks it up and looks at it like, oh, look, a screen, let me look at it. When
Yeah.
he's fighting in Germany, he's fighting against Loki, and Stark in the suit just lands with all these weapons. He's just like, Stark? Like, hi,
Yeah.
this mechanical
Yeah.
monster just goes...
Yeah, I mean, it made it kind of weaker, but at the same time, it would have really detracted from the film if every 2 seconds you see fucking Chris Evans. What the fuck is that? I mean,
No, but that's
But we
where the
did
first
say-
film would have worked better if they had him, even if it was a small chunk of the movie, attempting to adjust, wondering where all his friends are, wondering where his family is, wondering where, you know, what the hell he's lost. Because in the Avengers, he kind of just like, oh, okay,
well,
on to the mission.
in
Before.
the I think
Go on.
this if
I
I'm remembering
understand-
correctly, this-
I
well,
understand
well,
that
that's
part,
cool.
though. Because, I mean,
Thank you. Thank you.
this was the Damn it, Sean.
I was just trying to make a point, and then halfway through you kind of jumped all up in my shit. I was talking about how I'm pretty sure it was in one of the commentary tracks for the Avengers. Whedon talks about how he thought about shooting a brief scene where Cap goes to like a nursing home to try to find Peggy, but they cut it out in favor for just like that brief montage of him hitting the bag. And I can understand why, because I think it might have been a little too much in the movie to kind of, they didn't want to draw too heavily on any one prior film.
But Whedon said before Avengers came out though that he wanted the main perspective out of all the heroes, he wanted it to be through Cap's eyes. He felt like he had the most heartache and you know, at least that's what I thought he was going for, because that's what he told us he was going for. But I didn't get that at all.
I would make the argument that he did.
I don't think so.
I think Cap's perspective was the least looked at, other than like Banner's.
See,
in the very beginning, he like starts off like Sean said with the punching bag and everything, and in the aircraft on the way to the helipad, they're like, you know, Coulson was talking to Cap and everything. It seemed like it was easing into a movie through Cap's perspective of the movie, like, but it didn't feel that way at all. It just felt like Iron Man's movie. It was.
See, this is how I would argue that it's for Captain America instead. You brought up a couple of them right then. The way that you explain what is really going on in the movie after, of course, the opening scene, of course, is just like, let's get some action out there and, you know, do a tunnel chase and all that. But then the first time that Nick Fury really starts to say like what is going on, he's talking to Cap, and he's like, Cap, all right, you know, a lot of shit's changed, and they do that little bet, and $10 says you're wrong, that a lot of things have changed and all this. Later on, you get the little payoff about that and the payoff isn't even with the aliens. He gives him the $10 just looking at the way that S.H.I.E.L.D. is. So you see a little bit of a reaction right there that he's just like, I'm in way over my fucking head. And throughout the film, like, they don't get into let's get everybody together on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier until they bring Cap into there. They have Banner already there. They have, of course, the S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives and everything. And it's like, let's wait until he gets here. Thor, that's a little bit different, because I would say Thor is the one who has the least amount of perspective. He literally pops up out of nowhere. But Cap is the one that is arguing back and forth with Stark about whether or not they should trust S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything. Cap's the person who has the problem with them making weapons, introducing the plot line of the Phase 2 idea. Cap's the one that you follow through the perspective of, we're going to send him to go fight Loki in Germany. Cap also is the one that gets that one shot in the middle of the action sequence at the end where everything slows down and he's looking around completely out of it and just overwhelmed. In my mind, Captain America in the film, it doesn't hurt at all from him not to be confused about everything, because, as I think it was Sean had said, he's the type of guy who can put it all aside and deal with it, similar to how he did in Captain America. He was dealing with the Cosmic Cube and all this other kind of shit, and he just kind of did his job. Well, you know, I'm a guy from New York, and I'm going to beat your ass, like that kind of a thing. He has that kind of a reaction. So I think that when you get Captain America the Winter Soldier, it's going to be a similar situation to what Iron Man was, where Iron Man 3, which we'll start talking about next, that's a reaction of, this is what happens after Avengers. What do you do when I think the line of the movie is, he says, nothing's the same after that. Cap, I think, what his storyline is going to be is, he wakes up and they try to do their best to assimilate him into culture, and he immediately knows that that's not the case because of the radio. But we don't see what happened in between that time period. Now, he could have been essentially locked up in S.H.I.E.L.D. captivity and kind of exposed here and there to little things and all that, but he hasn't really had the time to sink it all in. And I think what we're going to see in the sequel is now that the whole alien threat has been dealt with and he's not necessarily on a mission, now he has the downtime. And now is when, after the crisis, you sit there and you go, what do I do now? Because he woke up immediately and he was Captain America. He just went right back to the job. And people do that in every kind of crisis situation. You lose a family member and you deal with whatever you have to deal with. And then when everything's done, then you go, okay, now I can sit and miss the person. And that's when he's going to be doing that.
The issue I have with that is the fact that they're making Steve Rogers separate from his Captain America identities. Like when in the Avengers, he was mostly Cap. You had nothing about Steve Rogers, the guy behind the suit. And I understand that because the Avengers itself was about the team. Whereas in Captain America, you don't establish much of who Steve is. All you establish is, right, he gets like drugged up, he becomes Captain America, bam, mission. You know, and it takes away a lot from his identity, and thus it creates a bit of a barrier for his character. Now, if they try to tie that all up in the second movie, in the Winter Soldier, it's gonna turn into a clusterfuck, in my opinion, because he's gonna go from a situation where, okay, I did this, now I'm gonna sit there and grieve about everything I've lost. It doesn't make sense.
I don't even think it's gonna be about that. From what I'm hearing about the second movie, the second Cap movie, is that he's finally just going to come to terms with it. He realizes, you know what, everyone I knew is just gone. There's no use crying anymore. I have to move on. I have to adjust to this new world. And then Bucky returns, and a ghost from his past brings it all back to him.
But do you think that in terms of that it's going to help his character in terms of development? Or do you think it's going to be another Iron Man 2?
Oh, I certainly hope it's not another Iron Man 2, but really what's going to make or break this movie, in my opinion, are not the main characters, but are the secondary characters. Like, how much involvement is Fury and Black Widow going to have in this movie? How is the new character in The Falcon going to either help Captain America or just make the film more confusing?
He's going to be Rhodey. We'll talk about some of that stuff when we get to Phase 2 things. But Brandon, we haven't heard much about you from Phase 1. What are your thoughts?
Well, I loved Phase 1. I mean, just the fact that they're making comic book movies that exist in the same universe and acknowledging that, I was all for it. I loved pretty much unanimously every single movie that was in Phase 1. So I think they did a good job of setting up characters in Thor, because there's really not much to explain apart from Thor other than he is this god. And yeah, that's really it. I mean,
you liked everything? What are you doing here?
I did. I know. I'm the one. I'm the lone. I'm the dissenting voice. I liked it. I was in favor of everything of this. Yeah, I was all in favor. I think you guys are all crazy.
I don't know.
Well, see, I'm a huge fan of it. I mean, there's just things that I'm nitpicking. I mean, when it comes to things like, did they really need to have like Ivan Vanko is Whiplash? And I mean, people have pointed it out before. The whole idea of like he goes to the Grand Prix thing, and what was his plan really supposed to be? Did he think that Tony Stark was going to take over the driving the car? Like, issues like that.
Well, he was clearly consulted when they wrote the script.
Yeah, clearly.
Well, that's why he has so many bird
even with
things
that,
in there.
what I think what happened there is, remember they changed the name of the driver to Stark? I think he was just going to be like, he needed to be in the pit just to do something there. And then I thought was just going to like attack Stark when he had the opportunity. Yeah, I think him being on the racetrack was just convenient for him.
He was probably set there anyway, and when Stark made the decision to, I'm going to drive this car because fuck logic and training, that he was just like, oh, so this just got a lot easier. So yeah. he was at Monaco. He was determined to attack Stark. It just happened to work out a little in his favor. Stuff like that's kind of easy for me to dismiss personally, because it's not really a stretch to I mean, if he's gone far enough to conceal this whiplash suit thing under his jumpsuit, then he's clearly thought of a number of different situations in which he was going to attack Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have anything about Phase 1 that they want to talk about before we start talking about Phase 2 and Iron Man 3?
I
think
don't think
everything
Edward
is-
Norton looked like a
Oh.
Hulk.
No, but
Like,
Norton.
Edward
Norton
Norton
was-
as the actor, yes, but when he turned, he doesn't look him. This other guy, I don't even know his name. He looks more like a Hulk.
I think that's honestly why they casted him, because of his
Yeah.
fucking eyebrows.
His appearance is more Hulkish.
Mark
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is a thing of beauty. I mean,
Yeah.
they really spent a lot of time making it
Yeah.
look
Yep.
like it was this man blown up and fucking out of
Yeah.
control.
Plus, he has like a caveman look to his face.
Here's
So-
an interesting question before we put the Phase 1 talk behind us. Favorite Stan Lee cameo?
Oh my
The Amazing
god.
Spider-Man.
That's not Phase 1.
That's not Phase. God damn it, Sam.
Damn it, it might be.
No.
It will never be.
Can we count Avengers as Phase 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's Cameo in Avengers where it goes, superheroes in New York? That's the best one.
Dude.
I would say
That's
my
very
least
proud.
favorite. My least favorite is Hulk because they kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no. Who's to say that he died? Who's to say he didn't turn into a fucking giant monster and fucking?
He's gonna be Red Hulk.
I was gonna say Stan Lee is the Red Hulk.
I would say my favorite is the one in Thor, with the
Did it
truck.
work? I don't see. I kind of liked all of them. I have a hard time picking just one because his lines are also classic. Like when he's the officer in the crowd in Captain America and he leans over to the other guy. I thought he'd be taller.
My personal favorite is when he's in X-Men First Class. Nothing.
I was sitting there going, wait a minute.
This is Phase
Nothing.
1.
I'm
At
just
least
kidding.
the Amazing Spider-Man might be incorporated into the Avengers.
No,
Never.
it's not. Come on,
Never.
admit it.
They were gonna have Oscorp in it. I mean, I feel like they're in negotiations.
It could possibly happen.
I
with,
feel like you're getting your
If
hopes up.
Disney,
It's not.
if Disney
it's-
could get around the whole Iron Man issue, I think they could get around the whole Spider-Man issue. Because they did it before. They just have to
I mean-
price that's suitable.
Can we-
There are little hints that they're kind of trying to work things out because
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
Iron Man 3 they mentioned the Roxxon Oil Company, and didn't the Roxxon Oil Company also kind of get a nod in the Amazing Spider-Man?
Yeah. Well,
that could-
Roxxon's in the first Iron Man.
Oh well,
the whole thing is
I
like
missed that.
Marvel has the rights to selling Spider-Man merchandise, but Sony owns the rights to him, like the movies and all. But you'd think they'd make a deal or something because they'd both be making money off of it. So why not just fucking do it?
It's
I
about
think that's
the
what's
time.
happening too. I think there's probably some backroom negotiation between Disney and Sony. It's just a matter of Disney naming the right price.
It's gotta happen.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's the right price. If Disney can name the right price, I can see that they'll just go into the same partnership they did with Paramount and just say, right, okay, we're going to distribute the Spider-Man movies. You can have them for the Avengers, but we're going to get
Just lease the
this
character.
percentage on the take.
Right, lease them.
I mean,
I mean, and would it be Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, or would they cast their own specific Spider-Man?
That
No,
would
but
probably
Andrew
be the
Garfield.
same.
I would
They'll
say Andrew
continue-
Garfield.
They'll continue off the trend.
But then you're gonna have to say that the Amazing Spider-Man 1 took place before the Incredible Hulk and before the Avengers.
That's fine. They
No,
can do that.
no. You can argue that the cranes in the Amazing Spider-Man were due to the fact that they're rebuilding New York after the events of the Avengers.
But nobody mentions the aliens in the entire movie.
Yeah,
Come on,
I mean,
old news.
aliens are old news. Seriously, old fucking news. Look at Area 51, man.
This
And
is New
Roswell.
York we're talking
Hey,
about,
I mean,
okay?
seriously.
Spider-Man is in high school. He's got more shit to worry about than
Yeah.
aliens.
Like
I-
Gwen Stacy.
I honestly just think that there's absolutely no chance whatsoever that Spider-Man gets any kind of place in Avengers. I think at the most, the only reason that they did they didn't even do it either. That they were thinking about doing the Oscorp building was because why not throw a little Oscorp thing in there for the
Right.
little fans and stuff. I don't think that it was anything to deal with actually getting Spider-Man in the movies. I think there's even a better chance that we're going to get something like Daredevil in these movies than Spider-Man at
not.
this
Yeah,
point.
because
We're
the
not.
rights
We're
have gone
not,
back
but I
to
mean, it's
Disney
a better
now.
chance than
But-
Spider-Man.
Can we
I-
eventually talk about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch?
We will
eventually-
in Phase 2,
Okay, good.
Part 3. of
All
this
I
one.
know, there are only two characters I give a damn about appearing in an Avengers movie. I would love if we could get Spider-Man and Wolverine. Those are the two
That's-
biggies.
Me too, man. Me
And
too.
it's just if they could somehow pull off Spider-Man, Wolverine with the Avengers in Phase 3 against Thanos, I will have the biggest penis.
Yes. Me
I thought
too.
they were going to say that Puck was one of them.
Yeah.
Puck.
Yeah.
He's pretty high up on the list too. I mean, Angel, he's really important and useful. I mean,
Mm.
All right, well then that kind of wraps up the Phase 1
we
talk.
can't go out on Angel
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah,
'cause it's
let's
a
get some
downer.
more. Let's get some more. Come on.
Should I just mention Puck again? That's an up.
Yeah, that's
Puck.
fine. Puck.
Fuck. Uh-huh.
All right, we're gonna talk Iron Man 3 in the next segment, so check out that part 2 coming your way.